Ciao a tutti! If you feel like you never know enough words to say what you want to say in Italian, then this video is for you. Today, I'm going to show you a simple method to start building your Italian vocabulary in a clear and manageable way, especially if you are a beginner and you have no idea where to start. Many students try to build their Italian vocabulary in a very random way. For example, opening an app and starting to memorize disconnected words. For example, I remember several students telling me about a very popular language learning app that kept showing them phrases about a penguin, un pinguino. And they were like, when am I ever going to talk about a penguin in Italian? Which is actually a really good point. Now, the problem with this approach is that it often creates confusion, not progress. As a result, students keep feeling like they still don't have enough words to build simple sentences and to start speaking Italian, which is actually true. And this is why. When words feel random, they are also much harder to remember and it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Also, if you learn words that are too specific or too difficult to use in real life, it becomes much harder for your brain to create those connections that help you recall the words when you need them in conversation. So, if you keep using this random approach, instead of building a solid base, you just keep collecting isolated words with no real structure. So, here's my advice. If you want to build your Italian vocabulary from zero in a way that helps you start speaking as soon as possible, then start with these three categories of words. Tre categorie di parole. Numero uno, start with words that already look familiar. This is the easiest possible starting point. Some Italian words are similar to English. For example, words like, okay, let's see if we can type, problema, problem, oppure, or animale, animal, or importante, important. These words are very, very similar to English words, and these are technically called cognates. These are words that share the same origin in English and Italian, which makes them easier to remember because they already feel very familiar. Numero due. After learning words that look very familiar, already familiar to you, learn very common everyday words. So I'm talking about words you are likely to use all the time, like words related to food, family, the house, travel, basic adjectives like small, big, nice, and basic verbs like want, go, have, eat. These are much more useful than random vocabulary because they come up again and again, so you will hear and use them a lot. And then, numero tre, and this is very important, add some context. So don't just learn one single word, for example, the word for station, which is stazione, another word that looks very similar to the English word, stazione. After you learn this, immediately place that word inside a very simple sentence or phrase so that the word becomes easier to remember and easier to use. For example, you could say, instead of just learning stazione, you could learn la stazione è grande. La stazione è grande. So the station is big. Even if you just say stazione grande, that's already great because you're adding something else that gives the word context and that enables you to use more words and create more connections. So in this way, you don't only remember the words, you actually start learning how to use them. So now that I've showed you the three categories, let me show you what this looks like in practice when you learn your Italian vocabulary. Let's start with the word, for example, for restaurant, which is ristorante, ristorante. And this is a good word to begin with because it already looks familiar if you speak English. Restaurant, ristorante. Now, step number 2, let's add a very common everyday word. For example, we may want to say small, a small restaurant. So that in Italian is piccolo, piccolo. And now let's put them together into a very simple sentence. For example, il ristorante è piccolo. The restaurant is small. So we have combined two words together into a phrase that makes sense and helps you remember both of them. Now let's do the same thing with another word. For example, the word for family. Come si dice family in Italiano? That's famiglia. Famiglia. Another similar word to the English one. Now let's add another simple, useful word, which could be the opposite of small. Small is piccolo, the opposite is big, grande. So that's another good adjective to everyday use that you use every day that you may want to learn. Grande, big. So now let's build a tiny sentence with both of those. Oops. La famiglia è grande. The family is big. So this is the method. Don't start collecting random words when you're trying to build your Italian vocabulary. Start with familiar words, then add one simple, useful word, and then immediately turn them into a very small phrase. And this is how you begin building vocabulary that you can actually remember and use. Now, why don't you try the method right now? Can you think of one Italian word that already looks familiar to you? Write in the comments, and if you want, try to build a short sentence with that. Now, what I want to stress, one more thing that I want to stress is this. At the beginning, your goal is not to learn as many words as possible. Your goal is to build a good foundation. And a good foundation does not come from a lot of random vocabulary. It comes from simple, frequent, useful words that you see and use again and again. If you start in the right place, vocabulary grows much faster over time. So start doing this as soon as possible. Now, since I really want to make this even easier for you, I've actually prepared a free PDF that's called the Italian Vocabulary Starter Kit. Now, this is not just a recap of the video. It's a practical resource designed to help you start building your Italian vocabulary step by step. Inside the PDF, you will find a list of familiar Italian words that are easy to recognize, another list of simple everyday words to combine with them, and a short guided exercise so you can build your own tiny sentences. And I promise you, no random penguins there. You can download the PDF for free using the link in the description below this video. Now, one more thing that I want to really stress. Please, please don't wait until you know enough words before trying to use them. This is something that I always stress. If you wait for the perfect moment, you will keep waiting. So even if you know only 5 or 10 Italian words, you can already start combining them in very small, simple ways. And this is very important because vocabulary becomes much stronger when you actively use it, like with any skill. And once you feel comfortable using those words, then you can start adding more and more in the same way with the same process that I showed you today. Okay, that's all for today. I will see you in the next video. Ci vediamo al prossimo video. Ciao da Valentina.